I'm going to try doing this. The fuzzy thing for the microphone fell off and got dirty on the floor, so I went and washed it, and it's still wet. So if this doesn't sound right, I'm sorry. And I was going to do something about my hair, but then I took a good look and I said, you know what? With your hair like that, you really do look like fat chick, glasses wearing Michael Myers. So this is a Halloween edition of a rant. And here is my rant. Okay, you know I don't have any freaking money. You know what I've been going through. You know that I'm hanging on because I don't know what else to do. If there was a clear path for me, I would do other things that people think I should probably do. But nobody knows what the situation is unless you're in it. It's not a matter of, oh, you don't, it's not feelings, it's facts. And facts are bad. Okay, so months and months and months ago, when I knew I was gonna, I knew I wasn't gonna have any more money. I knew that I was gonna have a problem paying the bills, the utility bills. I called 211, which is information, right? I called them to ask if there was anything else that was helping people, pay for utilities, not other stuff. And they told me about this program. I'm not going to say the name of the programs because I'm going to talk trash. But they told me about this program and then I should apply for it. I'm like, okay, I don't need rent money. And they're like, no, you should apply for it anyway. And she got mad like I wasn't listening to her. I was just trying to explain. I don't, you know what I mean? Because it's usually for rent money. But apparently because of the pandemic, they were giving more funding to help more people. And they were supposed to also help people pay utilities if they're in a situation. So I tried applying. But the way things were, with the pandemic, they are like, okay, I'm always doing these little burps. They're not burps. It's like air that gets stuck. So I applied. I put things through on the internet, but I got an initial confirmation that, okay, you applied. But then I never heard anything. And a month was going by and time's going by. And then I got 2 months later, I got a shut off notice, right, for one of my things. And I would start panicking, and I'm panicking and I'm freaking out. I'm talking to my neighbor because I don't have any friends. You know what I mean? So I'm freaking out and stuff, and I don't know what to do. And stuff because, when they send you a shut off notice, it's very soon. It's not like they're like, okay, if you don't shut off by a long time, if you don't pay for way out there, we're going to shut it off. It's like, and it was right at the time because at that point they had a moratorium on shutting things off, right? So it was like everybody was getting these, probably not everybody, but everybody who was in trouble and who was hanging on through the pandemic. So they never got back to me. And then I had just been trying to find out, did they ever get my application? Is it just still being processed because they have so many? I could not. I called everywhere I could call. Could not get a human being. Then I just called the Boston office, finally got through on the Boston office. They hung up on me because accident, right? Then I waited on the phone. Then you're waiting for an hour or more on the phone just to get hung up on. So I waited another hour. She said, oh, you have to call your local office. Which they didn't have anything to do with me, but okay. So I tried getting through, and I started pressing buttons you're not supposed to press just to talk to a human being. And that we do this is what's wrong with society anyway, even if, anyway, so I call the local office. They tell me to call the Boston office. And I'm like, nobody had any answer for me. Just, did my application go through? I couldn't find that out. So I applied again, right? I apply again, and they're like, they tell me I don't have a crisis. I have bills to pay. I have no money. They're all past due. But because I didn't have a shut off notice, I wasn't in a crisis, okay? Because I ended up paying that part. I made a payment plan for that. That's what I did. So I was able to put just a little bit amount of money, which to that point they had not told me there were payment plans. Every time I called and said I didn't have money. So I had made a payment plan, so that's why I was still able to exist. Okay. Then No, wait, this is when I sent it in again. So I sent it in again, right? So what? Yeah, I hadn't had the shut off notice yet. That's when they told me, oh yeah, I knew they would send it soon, but because I didn't, so they're like, you're not in a crisis. When I did get the thing, I didn't know what to do. I made the payment plan, but because I had the shut off notice, I still applied again, right? Because I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Because when I had applied earlier, I did not have a shut off notice. Okay, so I applied again. This is like a month and a half ago, right? So I make the payment plan. In the meantime, my other bills end up coming with shut off notices. And I don't know what to do, right? So I'm going crazy, all this other stuff. Come to find out, they also have payment plans. Okay. So I end up making payment plans, trying to give myself more time, knowing I still can't pay this bill. Even the payment plan thing, I can't pay that. But I'm trying to give myself more time, hoping for something to happen, right? So I'm up against it. I know that I don't have much time left to be alive or whatever, or exist in this situation, because they're going to shut off everything next week, right? You can't live without everything. Maybe you can live without electricity. Maybe you could live without heat. Maybe you could live without water. You can't live without everything. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't have help. I don't have a lot of help. Or I was trying to not ask for help from people who have begrudgingly helped me, don't have the money to help me, but you know what I mean? I don't know if you can hear that. It's a really weird noise going up the street. So Monday, out of nowhere, the people from this program that I applied to, once I never heard back, and the other time they said I wasn't in a crisis, suddenly called. Remember, I had put in the application again once I had that shut off notice from before, forgot all about it, because it's been like a month and a half. He calls me and he's like, oh yeah, so he wants me to send all this new documentation in, because I'm like, yeah, I can't pay any of my bills and they're all due coming this week. So he wants me to send all this new documentation in. So instead of me doing what I was doing, instead of me being centered, instead of me accepting my fate and deciding, should I just walk into the ocean, or should I just end up going to a shelter, instead of me mentally preparing myself for my inevitable situation, that this train that's been going off the tracks since forever, but it keeps getting pulled back and off the tracks and pulled back and off the tracks, and that's why I'm losing my damn mind, because of the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. This person calls Monday from this program, oh yeah, like he's going to help me out, right? Tuesday, I'm getting ready to go to my therapist's office after I spent the whole last day running around trying to upload things, because I don't have money to make copies. Okay, I don't, so I'm trying to upload everything and find, and maybe, you know what I mean? He calls me. I'm getting ready to go to the therapist. I'm putting my shoes on to go. He calls back like, oh, well, maybe you're better off getting help from this other agency. Who, and then maybe I should call them, who I was going to, when he called me on Monday, who I was already I stopped dealing with them because I was hurrying up, getting all the papers for him, right? Okay. So I'm explaining to him why, these people take 6 to 8 weeks. If you're not going to help me, then there's no help for me. So I thought that you know what I mean? Like, oh, you should go with this. Like, oh, like I have all these choices or something, So I go and I go to my therapist, and I'm flipping the fuck out, because this is why I'm going to a therapist, because I've been going through this since about May, with calling around trying to find out, instead of me I should have not thought about getting help. I should have just been like, fuck it, and just ignored all this shit, because all this government help isn't help. It's not help. This is why I stopped being a Democrat years ago, because I realized they were full of shit. Okay? So I go to, I'm an independent. I'm not on the other side, because obviously. So, now I'm trying to just calm down and figure out what to do. This guy, so my therapist calls because she's like, I'm going to call for you. So she calls the one people, and the person she talks to doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. You know what I mean? Because she's just a person answering the phone. And then they're like, well, the guy told us that you guys could help. Oh, no, it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks. Right? I'm glad my therapist heard that, because this is the crap I'm going through after he just told me, oh, no, it'll be easier for me to go through them. Right? So then she tries to call his thing, right? She calls his thing, leaves a message, right? I come home, right? Because I was walking outside, I guess I didn't hear the phone, So he left me a voicemail saying, oh, he can't talk to my therapist because they need a thing, but he's going to talk to the, Eversource, right? So now I'm just lost and not know, are people going to help me? Are people not going to help me? You're better off in life knowing what the truth is, getting exact information, and then making your decisions and figuring out what you need to do based on that. That's what I've been trying to do for 2 years. And every time I talk to somebody, they tell me one thing, I call back, somebody else answers the phone, tells me something else. This is why I've been losing it. This is why I'm like, how are you supposed to make a decision? How are you supposed to plan anything when you can't get accurate information? If you're a person with money in the bank and you were lucky enough or smart enough or whatever you were to have your shit together, then this doesn't affect you, and I'm happy for you. And if you hate people who get help from the government, I'm explaining to you why we go through enough stuff. I don't really get help, but this is me seeking help. I've gotten some help since the pandemic in terms of food stamps, but otherwise, no. Okay? So, yeah. So, all this back and forth. Then I call him. He can't talk to Eversource. He can't talk to my therapist. He can't talk to Eversource. Then he says, I have to call Eversource. And I'm like, well, what the hell am I supposed to be asking them? I'm supposed to be asking them for some paper that says that he can, I don't know what kind of paper I'm asking for. I don't know what he's talking about. So now I have to call Eversource. They want me to get some kind of paper. And the guy's like, yeah, they want you to get shut off notice. So, what happens is, I got the shut off notice a while back. Because I got the shut off notice and I had no help and I had no money, I made a payment plan, hoping that somebody would buy my shit on eBay. I don't know, something would happen that I would have some money to pay something, or some other magical thing would happen. Just trying to give myself more time. Because I made the payment plan, I no longer have a current shut-off notice. So, even though when I applied, and this guy's calling me because of when I applied, it was before the shut-off notice I got. It took them so long that I got shut-off notices. And I had to make a payment plan because because it would have been shut off by now. Now they can't help me, because I made the payment plan. These are people who got extra money because of the pandemic to help more people because of the situation we're in. They're going by their old rules. Now, understand what I'm saying. Now, fuel assistance people, me and my mom, my mom always got fuel assistance. I will go with her sometimes down to the office, do the forms and stuff like that. Okay, since the pandemic, you cannot go to an office because of the pandemic. You have to do everything either online or mail things in. Some of these agencies still don't have the capability to have you upload documents. They don't do the email thing. You gotta do it hand crank and send them applications by mail. You're lucky if you get a fax option. Okay? So, before the pandemic, when these places had offices where you could walk in, it may have made sense, because when you get a shut-off notice, they'll send you a shut-off notice on the 15th saying we're going to shut it off on the 30th. That means 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks to figure it out. So if an agency won't help you until you get a shut-off notice, you only have 2 weeks to apply and get help. Okay? But these agencies aren't responding to applications until a month and a half because they're so swamped or because there's nobody there or whatever. But they're still going by the we won't help you unless we have a shut off notice. So if you can foresee a situation and you want to plan ahead and you know it's going to take the agency 4 or 5 weeks to get back to you, so you apply 4 or 5 weeks before you believe they'll shut you off, even though you don't have a shut off notice yet. You're not qualified because you don't have a shut off notice. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you could walk down, if you could open your mail, say, "Oh my God, I have a shut off notice," and then go down to the office, walk in person, say, "I have this shut off notice. Can you help me?" And they decided right then and there, or they took your paperwork in and you talked to a human being and they did some thingies and said, "Okay, we're going to help you." Then the having to have a shut off notice would make sense because they're going to help you immediately. But if they're going to take a month and a half to even get back to you, and as I said, you only have like about 2 weeks after you get a shut off notice to pay something before they shut. This is why I ended up in the crisis center. This is why, because I was constantly trying to get my ducks in a row, find out information, call, okay, are you going to shut it off? Trying to juggle which bill to pay. For a while it was working, but I swear to God, after all the moratorium stopped, none of these companies, whether it's a government agency, whether it's Xfinity for cable, any of these people, you call, you get one answer. You call back, you get a second answer. Everybody tells you it's going to be okay. And then it's not okay. They just shut your shit off. And, you apply for something and you say, if I apply for this, is this going to affect my other thing? Because this thing's more important. Oh, no, it's not going to affect your other thing. And then your other thing gets shut off because you applied for that, even though you asked first. This is what I've been going through. This is why I'm insane. My hair would have looked like this anyway. It looked like this when I was in school. I just used to care to pull it back and try to fight it. But the fact is, my hair looks like what my brain feels like. I wasn't crazy before the pandemic. I wasn't crazy because of the pandemic. I didn't go insane because I was so sad being alone in the house with nobody to talk to. I'm going insane because I try to manage this thing, and to this point I have, but right now, this bullshit government with all this stuff and their supposed help, and this is why the people who get mad that government helps people aren't entirely wrong. Who is wrong is the people who blindly believe that their government is going to help people. And they keep voting for the same idiots who are going to do these huge spending bills. And God knows what's in them. Because, as I said before, they did, after Biden became president, there's some bill got signed, right? And all the states got money to help people, right? Massachusetts hasn't spent any, as far as I know. And it's been months. It's probably been since May. I don't know. It's been a long time. They don't even have a plan to spend that money. If that money was supposed to be to help people because of the pandemic, why is it just sitting there? And I'm not saying they should give it to me. Because what it sounds like, and what it sounds like when I hear about this new bill that wants to go through, it sounds like the money that they were going to have to spend eventually anyway. Or a bunch of money just flooded into the system for the governors to decide, and the governors aren't deciding because they want to do things that they would have done forever. Remember, I told you back in the day, not that long ago, but in the last 10 years or so, I used to go to public meetings all the time. I used to go to meetings for the South Coast Rail. The South Coast Rail would be a commuter rail train that was supposed to come between where I live down here, the South Coast, and Boston, because there is no train. There's a bus, but it takes a really long time in traffic, and it's not the best thing, and rail's supposed to be the future, and all this shit, okay? So, when I was coming home in 1999, and I didn't want to come home, my mother said, don't worry about it, there's going to be a train to Boston, everything's going to be okay. There is no train to Boston, it is 2021. That was 1999, this is 2021. Deval Patrick, bros with Barack Obama, Democrat, promised people when he was running that he was going to make a train to Boston. South Coast Rail. Okay? I went to meeting after meeting after meeting. I did all kinds of stuff when I came home because the train wasn't here. My mom told me that, but I'm like, there's no freaking train. The promise was to have South Coast Rail by 2016. We're all going to be on the train in 2016, he said. Okay. So, default Patrick decides he's not going to be governor anymore. He's going to go right off into the sunset. And the South Coast Rail still wasn't here. There was plans on top of plans. They do meetings. They go through all this stuff. They find out a reason why you can't. Oh, there's frogs in a swamp or some shit. And then they're like, okay, we're going to start all over again with our plans, which basically means people in government have a job making plans. That's why they get paid. That's why they have that job. So the funding goes to their job. And these studies that cost $1 million a pop. And in the end, where's the fucking train? There's no train. These people got paid nice salaries. The studies got done with a bunch of money over and over again. But where's the fucking train? I'm not on the train. Are you on the train? I'm not on the train. So he decides he's done being... Everybody expects. You know how these people go out, when these elected officials go out, they have their last flourish of what they're going to do. Everybody, all the people in transit, people who do this for a living, were 100% positive that on his last thing that he was going to sign off on, that he was going to set aside the funding for the South Coast Rail, even though past time already. We were supposed to be on the train already. There's no train. The tracks were kind of almost there, but he was going to benchmark that money for the South Coast Rail. And he just went, nah, and he left. He could have done it. He didn't need more money from somewhere else. He could have done it right there, just and it would have been done. The promise he made would have been completed, and he could have went off as like a good guy. And but he just decided not to. Why? I don't know. I don't think anybody else knew. I think I went around asking people in transit, and they looked like somebody smacked them in the face with a fish. They didn't know why either. Nice white people, nice white SJW people in government who want to help people and who really believed. He didn't do it. Nobody knows why. Do you know why? Because they're all a bunch of fucking liars. And they always say whatever they're going to say to get elected by poor people who need help. And people believe their promises. And the thing about this promise, there was absolutely no reason not to do it. So I'm hearing about this infrastructure bill. And having gone to all these meetings and seeing what Governor Baker proposed about low-income housing and all this stuff to do with that money, all this money that's being poured in since the pandemic and all this stuff that people now realize we need to do since the pandemic is stuff that was already on the table before the pandemic. It's stuff that they wanted to get done or supposedly wanted to get done or said they were going to do for people before the pandemic. So all this money that everybody's shitting themselves over, and it would have happened anyway if they were going to do it. If they ever had any intention to do it, they would have done it anyway, pandemic or not. All these spending, I don't know what's in the spending bill. I know that the stuff that the super type, liberal type Democrats wanted got taken off. Why? Trillions of dollars, and you can't do the little shit that they want you to do. Look, when I was growing up, community college was free. I didn't understand why that went away. The point is, you don't have a high tuition for it and then have the government have to pay the high tuition. You just have the government run it, and then it doesn't cost shit. You know, you just pay the teachers and shit. And the kids buy the books. And you pay, you own the building. You pay the electricity for the building. So you don't have a supposed high tuition that the government will not have to pay per student. No. Why is it that these people are doing this? Why is it that anybody's believing their crap? The weather right now, I swear to God, it says it's 122 degrees. I just looked up the TV screen and it says it's 122 degrees right now where I am. It's not. Anyway, yeah. So this is why I'm losing my mind. Because I'm a sensible person who is in a bad situation, is trying to make sense of things, understand my situation, and figure out what I'm doing. When this whole thing began, before the pandemic began, I was in a very bad situation, but I saw paths out. The pandemic and what has happened to the places that I would have tried to go to, these vaccine mandates and all this shit has changed the landscape. And that's why I don't know where I can go and I don't know what I can do. And that's why I need information. And that's why I need to be able to figure out. I need to have I can't just jump off a cliff and hope I land. That's why I'm like, well, I might as well stay where I am until I'm physically removed instead of jumping off a cliff and, to my demise because I preempted the inevitable. That's why I'm stuck. Because what once seemed slightly possible became impossible because of the lockdowns. Honest to God, in my situation, the lockdowns made it so whatever convoluted scheme I was trying to come up with became impossible. And I've been trying to come up with another plan. I cannot. My brain doesn't function anymore. And I don't think there's a plan. That's why I keep trying to hang on by my fingernails. And you hear me complaining all the time and saying, because I'm literally going day by day. And that's what's kept me insane. But when these people call and they don't know what they're talking about, and they're going to help me, but they can't help me. They call me back the next day, maybe I should go with this other agency, which I was already going to, but knowing that they can't really help me either. And it's because of these people, and every fucking step of the way, for the last few months, I will pick up the phone and call a place, or I will talk to somebody from a place, and the person at the place doesn't know their own rules. They don't know what's going on. They don't know if they can help or not. They think they can. They want to maybe, but they don't even know their own rules. And I've been going through this for years where I will pick up the phone of a government agency to ask a question, get more information, and I know more than the person who answered the phone. Okay? I think a lot of people have gone through this. I think a lot of people went through this, the people who had to try to collect unemployment. I think you saw how badly government doesn't work. But remember, they keep pouring money into all these agencies that don't work. These agencies were supposed to help more people, but they haven't changed their rules. If they got more money because of an emergency situation, but they didn't change their rules for an emergency situation, like let's help people before they get a shut-off notice, since shut-off notices give you 2 weeks, but we're taking 5-6 weeks. Let's help people 5-6 weeks. Let's help people when they have past due notices, not shut up. If they're not going to do that, then should they really be getting more funding? Because in the end, they're helping the same people they were helping before. They're not helping more people. They're helping the same people who are at the very end, who would have been able to get their funding, who would have been able to get help from them before the pandemic, before emergency measures, before all this extra money. Things should have changed because of the pandemic, but in reality, they didn't. But there's been a lot of funding going into these organizations that already only help a small fraction of people who need help, because they have strict guidelines and things that disqualify so many people for help. That's why people become criminals. That's why people go to loan sharks. That's why people become dependent upon other people. Because government gets all this funding, and in the end, just like if you want to apply for a job, and everybody thinks there's all these jobs out there that people should be getting, the people who need the job can't get the job because they're not that perfect applicant. And then they stay out of work and everybody judges them. Meanwhile, the job stays open, and the media will tell you, oh no, there's a worker shortage and all this shit, because nobody tells the truth. The truth is, all these agencies, all these places, all the people who are out of work, all the people who are underemployed, all the people, you need to be the perfect person to get a job. You need to be the perfect person to get help. That's why there's the situation you see with all these people who are lost, these people who wander the earth. And either they get help from a person they know, or they have to do bad things to make money, because all these agencies, all these places that could, it's not difficult. It's not hard work to do these entry-level type jobs, to work at Walmart, to work at McDonald's. But they won't hire you if you're not the perfect candidate, okay? You got a gap in your resume. You don't have your own car. You can't, you mean you can't work nights and weekends. You're not perfect. You don't have all the things that they need you to have to be that perfect Dunkin' Donuts employee. You're not good enough to work at Dunkin' Donuts. But the whole world doesn't understand why you don't go get that job at Dunkin' Donuts. Because they're hiring. But they won't hire you. And you can't apply here. And you don't fit. When you don't fit, you don't fit. And you want to know why there's all this mess in this world and there's all these people who don't have, it's because they don't fit. And it's those people who don't fit who government is supposed to help. The people who need help because they can't get it somewhere else. But all these agencies will help the same person who is at the very bottom. The person, they generally end up only helping people who are the kind of people, too blurry, that government, that people who don't want government helping people think shouldn't get help. Criminals, people who just got out of jail, people who are, people who did do the wrong things. Those are the people who are on the very, very bottom. And those are the people who many, many different agencies will help. But decent people or people who are about to fall on hard times, or people who are on the edge, or people who, for whatever reason, don't fit in all the boxes, because you know how government is with their boxes and checking off boxes. People who don't fit in all those boxes, they do not get help. And all this pandemic bullshit and all this we're going to help more people and all this extra funding to help more people, they're still going by their old rules. They're still going by their same application process. In the end, they're driving, on top of me not getting help, they're driving me insane. They're driving me insane. And this is why I don't belong. I think the reason my life sucks, the only reason my life sucks and the reason I can never fix things is so that somebody who knows better can go through it and say this isn't right. Because a lot of people on the bottom accept their fate. And they say, you know what, it's supposed to be like this. And you know what, there's nothing I can do about it. And they accept, well, that's government. It's not supposed to be like this. They're not supposed to keep treating people like shit and taking them for granted. And saying, you know what, we're going to pretend we're going to help you and get all this government funding, or we're going to pretend we're going to do this, but we're going to make even more processes and even more applications and make the rules even more stringent on who's going to get help and who's not going to help. And you're going to have to apply for this and apply for that. I saw a thing today. I don't live in Boston. They're going to help. They're setting aside so many millions of dollars to help people who are behind on their mortgage, but you have to fit the specific guidelines and you have to be 90 days past due. And I'm sitting there listening to that and I'm like, yeah, there's going to be a bunch of people who need help. And there'll be 89 days past due. They're going to send in their application and they'll be like, fuck you, you don't need help. And then by the time the applications get processed, the people are going to be out on the street. This is why, as much as part of my brain is socialist and part of my brain would have people have all kinds of stuff, I know now government will never work that way. I might even have been a pinko commie if I thought government worked, but it doesn't. Or if I thought people really knew how to pitch in together and lock arms and let's all live on a commune and let's all pitch in and everybody pull their weight. And if I really thought people were made that way, I probably would be a commie. But they're not. I know people are selfish. I know everybody's trying to get over. If I was in charge, I would know how to fix everything. I told you, when the pandemic, they should have made universal basic income. And then after pandemic, they should have kept it, and they should have pulled back on all these agencies. So all the funding to these agencies should have come away, and that should have gone into universal basic income, meaning the panhandler you can't stand gets $2,000 a month. Oprah Winfrey gets $2,000 a month. Fair is fair. Everybody gets it. Nobody can complain. And then every single American gets to decide what to do with their $2,000 a month. If you don't need it, if you're Oprah, you could give it to somebody else. You could buy, I don't know, $2,000 mascara. Who the hell knows what Oprah would do with an extra $2,000? You know what I mean? Use it for toilet paper, whatever. The point is, everybody would get it. It would be fair. Nobody would complain. And then people could decide for themselves how to use it. If people didn't need it, just normal middle-class people didn't need it, put it away. Save it. Save it for a rainy day. Buy some stocks with it. Buy those pair of shoes you never wear. But the people who need it would have it. They wouldn't have to go through all this thing. This is what I said. This is why I said universal basic income. Not because anybody should get, if you think people don't pull their weight, fine. But this is what I'm saying. This would be for everybody. People who pull their weight and don't pull their weight. And it would be fair. And then, like I said, you pull back on all those convoluted agencies that are just there to get paid. They move papers around. And in the end, they help very little. You know, like I said, one of these forms that I applied for last year, it says I'm 43 on it. I sent it back without realizing that it said that. And I'm looking at the copy I made. I'm like, oh shit. So I had to send a note saying, but I fixed it last year. It said I was 43 last year. I crossed it out and I put, no, I was 46. This year, it comes right back and it says I'm 43. I forgot. I didn't see it when I looked at it. And, oops, I should have crossed it out and put 47. But why didn't it say I was 46? Because I fixed it last year. Do you see? There's something inherently wrong with everything they're doing. Everything is bullshit. You have to have all your ducks in a row. You have to still be on time. You still have to make your payments. But they changed everything. They changed the world. They made it impossible for you to figure out your own stuff. They made it impossible for you to do the things we used to do before the pandemic. And now they've got all this extra funding to help more people. And in the end, they still got their little application process that still comes down to the same subset of person. And now there's going to be even more. I don't even know what this funding is for. All I know is it's not the stuff that the super Democrats wanted. So if it's not, then what the fuck is in it? Stuff for the roads, stuff for bridges, like I said. That shit was always going to need to be fixed. Making it this grand gesture and we're going to fix everything because now that we've been through the pandemic, it's a bunch of lies. It's a bunch of bullshit. Because what they'll do exactly what I went through when I went to all those public meetings. They'll have public meetings. Should we do this? Should we do that? That's what I think Governor Baker wants to do with this money. He thinks it's supposed to be pandemic money. But, oh, maybe we should do low-income housing. So what do? They'll do studies. And they'll have meetings. Do you want to put it here? Do you want to put it there? Well, we can't do this. And it'll take years and years and years for them to spend that money. That's what government does. They look busy. And they get paid while looking busy. But they don't help anybody. They don't make things easier. They make everything hard. They help the same people they were always going to help. So whether they're Democrat or Republican, they still think you're supposed to pull yourself up by your bootstraps or get help from friends and family. And if you don't have friends and family, well, then, you probably have to become a drug dealer so we can put you in jail. Isn't that nice? And then they can pay for you to live in jail. Whatever.